There was a guy once, let's call him John. He came to me with something simple, but it didn't feel simple to him. He couldn't let go, couldn't sleep, couldn't breathe without her in his head. I asked him, what does she mean to you? He didn't hesitate. Everything. And that one word told me everything. He said, she's like my sister, like my wife. She's my everything. And right there, I saw the pattern. Not in his pain, but in his words. See, as kids, we feel everything big, loud, wild, pure. A yellow rock, gold. No candy? The end of the world. Mom says no. Evil witch from the deep forest. We don't hold back. We don't filter. We feel. But then we grow up and we're told to shrink. Sit still. Don't overreact. Be polite. Be reasonable. And slowly we start dimming until one day we no longer know how to feel fully or how to hold our feelings with balance. But here's the twist. John, he never unlearned that intensity. He still feels like a child, which in many ways is beautiful. He didn't forget how to care. He just never learned how to land. And when he fell for her, he fell hard. Not she's someone special, but that she's a god. She hears me when she's not even there. She understands me like no one else. And that's the problem. Not her. Not the feelings, but the size of it all. John lives in a cognitive distortion psychologists call catastrophizing, overgeneralizing, glorifying, making things so big in your mind that they start running your life. And the bigger you make someone, the smaller you become around them. She wasn't a woman anymore. She was the embodiment of all comfort, love, and hope. And when you call someone everything, what are you without them? Exactly nothing. So what's the way out? You shrink it. Not the love, not the experience, just the language. You don't say, she's an angel who completes my soul. You say, she's someone I really connected with. She helped me feel seen. She has beautiful qualities and some things I would have done differently. You name her for what she is, a person, not a myth. And you remind yourself, there are 8 billion more people walking this earth. She is one of them, not all of them. Next time John came in, he told me he messaged her again. I asked why. He said, well, I promised her I'd check in. And besides, I have a horrible hatred for miscommunication. Horrible hatred, he said. There it was again. The big words, big feelings. So I asked him, what if miscommunication was just funny? He blinked, paused, laughed. I said, what if miscommunication is just two confused humans trying their best with bad timing? What if it's not tragic? What if it's just awkward and human? And in that moment, you could see the shift from epic heartbreak to humble perspective, from emotional hurricane to human weather. So if you can't let go of someone, ask yourself, have I made them too big to release? Have I wrapped too many roles into one name? And am I describing my feelings or my fantasies? Because you don't need to kill your emotions. You just need to let them breathe in a smaller room. So maybe by now you're wondering, but what if I really loved them? Doesn't that make it more complex? Yes, of course it does. And yes, feelings are real. You can be touched by a smile, by how someone moves, how they look at you, how they show up. You can feel a pull, a spark, a warmth, a comfort. You can fall for the sound of their voice, the way they laugh, the way they sit in silence with you. But even then, that feeling doesn't come from nowhere. It's not just magic. It's not even fate. Although I do believe that fate can exist between two people. I've seen it. I've felt it. But even when fate is real, it's still the meaning we give to it that turns a moment into a story. We don't just feel, we project, we build, we shape from hope, from memory, from what we've always longed for. And that story, the one in your head, can be beautiful, but it's still yours. And if you built it, you can also begin to reshape it. We don't just feel, we attach meaning to moments, gestures, patterns, and that is what builds the depth. It's not wrong, it's human, but it's still constructed. And when meaning is something we create, we can also learn to reshape it. Let me explain. You're standing on a train platform. Someone next to you, cold face, clenched jaw, suddenly spits out, "Get lost." Boom. Instant emotion. Not because of their face, not because of their coat, but because of the meaning you gave to their words, their tone, the situation. Before that, they were nothing to you. A shape, a stranger, a blur. Now, there's someone who hurt you in less than 5 seconds. So imagine what happens when you've known someone for years, when you've shared stories, memories, intimacies. That meaning, it compounds. And suddenly, like John, you can't let go. Not because the person is objectively irreplaceable, but because of the story you've built around them. Let's be honest, we do this all the time. He brings flowers on the first dates, holds the door open, helps you with your coat. So romantic. Gentlemen, a special kind of man. She listens to your rants about your car, your job, your team, and asks follow-up questions. She sees me. She really gets me. Maybe, or maybe, you just built a whole identity on a few meaningful signals. Because that's what we do. We're not falling in love with people. We're falling in love with the stories we tell ourselves about people. So here's the thing. Those stories aren't bad. They're human. They're beautiful even. But they become dangerous when you need distance and your story keeps pulling you back. Like John. He couldn't let go because in his story, she was still a goddess, still divine, still more than perfect. But she isn't. She is human, with real strengths, real flaws, just like you, just like me. So what do? You rewrite the story, deliberately. Start by writing down everything you think about them. Adoration, resentment, confusion. Write it all. But under one condition. You're not allowed to use the word everything. Be specific. Write down exactly what you saw, heard, and noticed. What do I think of this person? And why exactly do I think that? Yes, I said exactly, twice. Then ask more questions. Push yourself. Write more. Into detail. Now the next step, shrink it as the goddess becomes a good person. The most beautiful soul on earth becomes someone who gave you attention when you needed it. The perfect gentleman becomes a guy who occasionally acted like one. Make it honest. Make it human. Say it out loud. 3 times a day. Yes, out loud. Because what you say is what your nervous system eats for breakfast. And if you keep feeding it with inflated fantasy, your body won't know how to feel anything else. And maybe you're thinking, but it felt real. Sure, so did Santa Claus, for a while. But that wasn't the truth. That was the story. And just like you created that story, you can create a new one. One that serves you. One that helps you breathe. Let go. Take space. Feel grounded again. Because here's the deal. He did leave his clothes everywhere. That's fact. But he's a slob? That's the label. And labels are sticky. Because they collapse complexity into a single dangerous word. So make the story honest. Make it smaller. Make it doable. Not to erase what happened, but to finally let it take up the right amount of space. Because when your story starts matching reality, you stop fighting your feelings and start finding your freedom. So, Is love nothing more than the meaning you give it? The story in your head? Of course not. Sometimes it's energy. Sometimes it's timing. Sometimes it's something we can't even explain, and we shouldn't try to. But that's not what this is about. This is about what happens when the story in your head gets louder than the person in front of you. When the picture you paint starts to drown out the reality you're in. When meaning becomes exaggeration, and no one benefits from it. Not when you're trying to take distance. Not when there's pain. Not when there's conflict. Emotions are powerful. They deserve space. They deserve to be felt. But they also need direction. Because when you know how to feel deeply without making everything bigger than it is, you unlock something beautiful. You cry fully. You love openly. You laugh without guilt. That's the power of being able to exaggerate. On purpose. To lift something. To celebrate it. To amplify what deserves to be felt. But when it's time to let go, when distance is needed, that same ability to make things big needs to be used in reverse. You need to shrink the story, to bring it back down to earth, to remind yourself this was a chapter, a person, not the entire story. Because when you can do both, when you know how to feel fully, but also how to breathe again when it's time, that's when emotions become a gift, not a prison. And here's the paradox I hope more people start to understand. We need to stop making some things so big they break us. And at the same time, we need to start making the small, beautiful things just a little bigger again. The smile, the breeze, the laugh from someone you love, the hug from someone you miss, the quiet knowing that this moment, this exact one, is also your life. Because making something big that actually serves you, that is the most human thing you can do. Now, one last thing. This goes for anger too, especially when things end in conflict, when someone walks out of your life and all you feel is pain, so you call it hate. You say you're done. You say they were toxic, evil, cold. You write the story in black and white because grey feels too messy. But here's the truth. Hate is often just hurt that got made too big. It's your story, trying to protect your wound. But when you exaggerate that story, when you let your anger turn someone into a monster, you're not healing. You're hardening. You don't have to forgive today. You don't have to forget. But you can shrink the story from they were a horrible person to they didn't know how to love me right, from I hate them to they hurt me, and I'm learning to let it go. Make the story smaller, more human, more real. Because when you shrink the hate, you create space for peace. And that peace, it's not for them. It's for you.